everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of What's on Tap. Gary Monterosso. We have the whole crew here today. Gary Monterosso, Tara Nurin is here after another one of her world jaunts, which took you to...
I think you're referring to China,
I'm
probably.
referring to China, yeah. Although, was that the most recent, or were you in...
No, that was my most recent
That was
trip.
your most recent? Oh, my goodness, that should last you for a while, I would think.
Yeah, I'm so happy. I only have one trip in October, and it's to Kentucky.
Right.
I get really excited about these, like...
It's gonna be
I don't want to say dinky, because Kentucky's not dinky, but like these little domestic trips instead of the, big European
So
ones.
she goes to China, and Louisville is, a step down. I'm going to Vineland later on the day.
And later today, I might head down to Cape May. I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
Well, but I brought some stuff for us to taste from China.
So I noticed, and the packaging is beautiful.
Yeah, it
which
is.
is something that I would expect. I mean, you see that. I mean, what is that? What is that blue-looking decanter that you have there?
So
What
this
is that?
blue one is the reason I went to China, but it is a Scotch, which is confusing because if you know about whiskey, you know that Scotch has to be made in Scotland. So I had no idea why the Scotch distillery was bringing me to China until I got there, and they really explained it. But it's a Scotch. We'll taste it, and they made its international. They released it internationally in Beijing. And that's
Did you try it over there when you were in China?
I did, yeah.
So you did.
Uh-huh.
I know you get to meet a friend of mine, Michelle Wang.
Oh, yes. Michelle
was
and I hung
Michelle?
out. Michelle's great. Michelle, for those of you guys, I wouldn't expect anybody listening to actually know who she is yet. But she is the publisher of the first craft beer magazine in China. And as you know, brings a lot of Chinese business people over to America to the beer conferences. And she puts on beer conferences and such.
Well, you want to hear something that probably you don't even know?
What's that?
Our good friend Barbie Marshall from Hell's Kitchen is heading there, and I introduced her to Michelle, and Michelle is hooking her up with one of China's top chefs.
Nice.
And is going to be giving her a tour.
Oh, fantastic.
Of the area. So I'm really excited for both of them. So Barbie's going to be in the Far East for about a month, traveling different parts of that part of the world.
Good for her.
But we're able to work out some time with her. So I know Barbie listens sporadically. I don't know if she's going to be listening today, but she'll be leaving early November for that.
Oh,
and,
nice.
It's going to be cool.
Oh.
Looking forward to that. And I thank Michelle for working that out. She was interested in meeting Barbie also.
Well, honestly, if there's anybody listening who is...
Yeah, is there anybody listening?
who's in the industry and wants a beer connection in China, you should definitely let Gary or me know, and we'll put you in touch with Michelle because she's fabulous and so well connected and always happy to help somebody if it's, something legitimate. So
She travels almost as much as you do.
she travels a lot.
She does.
Well, she lives in Shanghai and happened to be in Beijing the weekend I was there, and
That's right.
she brought me to this high-level brewery meeting. I mean, she's up there.
Oh, to a meeting. Mm-hmm. Wow. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how many brewery meetings you've sat in upon, but
Not in China.
but that's my point. How different? If you've sat in on other brewery meetings, was it different? Was it what you expected, or what?
Yeah, it was what I
And did you know what was
expected.
going on? Was she there to translate for you?
She was explaining a lot to me. The big difference that I noticed might sound silly, but it's just something I didn't expect at all. There were happily a lot of women in this meeting and high-level investors in big companies in China, like Lenovo, the laptop company.
Right.
That there was a
Which
Chinese
is what I'm
woman
using right here. Plug.
Oh, all right, good. Yeah, I have one too. Excuse me. So there are all these high-level women at this meeting, which was exciting. And then when the meeting ended, the hosts gave all the women, these huge bouquets of flowers
Oh,
to
Lord.
take home.
How cool is that?
Like a pageant bouquet. It was.
I don't think that's done here in the U.S.
No.
Much, is it?
I mean, I was like, thanks. I'm going to take it back to my hotel and try to figure out something to do with it because I'm flying out tomorrow, but they're beautiful.
Nice. So we have a couple beverages we're going to be sampling
Yeah.
today, courtesy of you and our friends over in China.
Yeah, and I'm snickering.
John
You guys
Kashu
will
from
find out
South
why.
Jersey Beer Scene is with us also. Hi, John.
Hey, what's happening?
Oh, well, we should ask you because you seem to know everything that's going on. We found that out last week.
Yeah, it's a little quiet right now on the Western Front, I would say. But I think that all the camps, and I think Tara will agree with this, are kind of digging in because I think that there's going to be a little bit more coming, to the surface on this in the next couple months, I would say. Not weeks, but months with the with all the rulings that are going on. Because if we got holidays coming up.
Correct.
So a lot of these, coming in November and December, the assembly, and they're not in session the whole time.
True.
So, I think that we won't see anything probably till the beginning of next year is from what we're seeing. So,
anything happening in terms of new breweries opening up in the southern part of the state here?
We do have a couple that are getting ready to open. I think there will be 4 before the end of the year. Our friends at Summers Point Brewery open up in Summers Point, New Jersey. We have Gusto, and they are in North Cape May. Our friends at Neck of the Woods opening up in Mantua Township, right in the Total Turf Experience building. I think they're pretty close as well. There's a couple more that are in various stages. But those 3, I would assume, would be open sometime in the next month or 2.
How are we keeping up in the South with the rest of the state as far as brewery growth?
There was a couple brewery openings in the northern part of the state in the last 2 weeks. I think there's actually one that opened last Saturday.
That was Montclair.
What's that? There's one in Montclair, and then there was another one that opened last Saturday up in Kenilworth.
Okay.
But as far as the numbers, I think South Jersey's slowly creeping up. How I count them, we have about 40 in South Jersey. Of the traditional breweries, there's somewhere around 90, 92, depending on who you call a brewery.
40+ percentage.
Yeah, but just a year ago, it was 27 or 28. It's really, really popping up quick, especially in the Philly suburbs, Gloucester County and Camden County, and even Burlington County had a couple open. It's really picking up. Business is picking up.
So a company that opens up in that proximity, are they looking for Philadelphia market?
I think so. I think that you'd be foolish not to market over there because it's, beer nerds are nerds. I travel all over to drink beer because I want to try something different. You can jump across the bridge and you can literally hit 5 breweries in Camden and Gloucester County in one day, as long as you have a designated driver, folks. But and they're in close proximity, a lot of different styles, a lot of different types of tasting rooms that are out there. And I think you have to market to Philly at this point. And we see a lot of our breweries now distributing in Philly. In the last couple of weeks, I know that, 8 and Sand just started distributing in Philly. They had a big
party at
in
I forget where it was now,
but it's advantageous to do that because one of the things in Pennsylvania is that you get paid right away. Once your beer goes over there, you don't have to wait for it because I think that's something to do with the laws. So you're actually bringing money in, and that's one of the things that I think that people like about that. And Philly's probably, and Tara, about one of the top 3 beer markets in the country, I think, at this point. as far as destinations because we have a lot of we get a lot of beer in Philly that are one of the only places like Russian River and a couple of things like that it's a destination now.
Belgian breweries come here to Philly a lot. I don't know how one necessarily quantifies and I don't know if you have
I don't,
metric.
but just if you just do breweries, of course, San Diego comes up and all these. But as far as a beer town, as far as a beer destination, Philly is one of the ones where, not only are there breweries, but there are lots of other beers worldwide beers that you can only get here. And I'm sure a lot of it has to do with Monk's.
Yes.
What he did down there. But it is a destination, and we reap the benefits of that being across the bridge.
Talking about Philly and Belgian-related bistros, bars, if you will. When Eulogy shut down, I had heard, and I haven't seen an update on this, maybe you guys might know. That breaks your heart, doesn't it, Tara?
It does.
It does. I know. I loved Eulogy. But wasn't one of his former bartenders, I think, taking over that spot and opening up something? I had heard some info on that several months ago, and I've gotten nothing since then. And I tried to reach out to them, and I got no response. So I don't know what the status is.
Maybe
right
Mike will come back.
Second Story's right across the street from him.
Yeah.
In town. I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, maybe.
Where's Mike? Is he in Las Vegas?
Mike's in Vegas.
Yeah. Mike Nessens, of course.
Yeah.
Who's an interesting bird, to say the least.
I
love him, though.
Let's see let's get him. Let's call him right now. Let's call him.
I don't think he's a big fan. He's not a big fan of Philly, is he?
No, I think he loves Philly. He was here for so long.
No, but he had some
he had some enemies. He made some enemies.
Speaking of crossing the bridge, we're crossing the bridge with these beers we're drinking here today. We have our first beer, and this is Bill McGeeney from Round Guys. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty well.
Oh, so it's so great to have you here. We appreciate your making a trip for the second straight week. I like that. And we're drinking a beer from you. What is this beer we have?
This beer is Bumblebee Wheat Ale.
I'm liking this.
This is a pretty much by-the-book wheat ale that we made specifically for a band that came to our underground facility. If you look at the can has art that they drew on it, and it's pretty much co-branded with a band called Stereo Titans.
Yes.
They're a really cool band. They're a comic book themed band. They do cosplay, like hard rock cosplay. It's pretty cool.
What's that? I've heard that word, but I don't know
Cosplay?
what it is. Yeah.
So cosplay is essentially when you get dressed up in character of some fictional character. Their story is the Titans, which are the precursors to, say, the gods, right? The Greek Titans. And they decide to fill in the blanks of the stories that were never fleshed out. So they have their own comic books. The beer is actually in the comic books. They did a music video at our brewery. And this beer goes with them when they go out and play different shows down here in AC, or if they're over wherever they're pretty much at, the beer travels with them. Manioc, it'll travel with them.
Bill, isn't it kind of cool? I mean, even on a larger scale, so many recording artists have latched onto a beer brand.
Yeah.
And almost making it their own. I mean, we've seen that in our case here, What's on Tap, when we were doing TV. We did our segment at Philadelphia with Megadeth.
Dave Mustaine.
Dave Mustaine, right, exactly. Because Dave has his beer through Unibrew in Quebec, Canada. So we're seeing much more of that. So I kind of like it. I think it's kind of hip and kind of cool.
It's fun. It
is fun.
It's not only a way for you to expand your market a little bit, but it's just fun. Like when you have a band come in, first off, these guys were so excited to have their own beer. I've never seen, it's like 5-year-olds on Christmas Day.
Is that right?
It was a big band too. Probably, I want to say like an 8-piece band. And these guys were they brought in a busload of people come up for their show, and they got, everyone pretty much was getting like a 4-pack for themselves, and they're all so excited. It's just everything to me that the beer culture should be fun, should be about sharing the experience with others. It should be about, just the creativity. I think it fits. It's perfect.
This is a curious beer because, and I'm so happy you sent me the specs on this beer, and I really appreciate that. I seldom get it, but you told me you gave me the ABV, and of course it's about 5% alcohol by volume. But you also
5.5.
mentioned the hops.
Yes.
On this, and there was one that I was not overly familiar with, and that was lemon drop hops.
Yes. Lemon drop is our go-to for adding that. It's kind of like a lemony, kind of floral, grassy flavor to it. So that hop will come in late in the game, just for flavor.
But it works for this. It works real
great.
well for this.
Yes.
I almost get a little bit, tell me if I'm wrong, maybe my palate is off, I almost get a little bit of a peppery note.
Well, the peppery note,
as well.
that could be, we're using, and I can't recall what kind of honey at the moment, but there is a honey adjunct added in secondary. So in our post-fermentation, we add in honey, and that gives it that, I call it an intangible kind of fruitiness. It's really a hard fruitiness to describe, but it's that honey sweetness that if you have a good, decent mead, my buddy, you guys probably know Adam Crockett over at Haymaker Mead.
Very well.
Yes.
We need him on. Anyway, go ahead.
And
we love mead, yeah.
His way of getting the honey to provide a very dynamic character is similar to the characteristic you get in this beer right here. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I cannot for the life of me ever describe a true good mead. So I'm just going to
you know whether you like
there.
it or not. I
Right.
mean, that's it, right, exactly. And I don't know characteristics of mead either. I mean, I've had a ton of meads in my life, but I know when I like it.
Yeah.
Just like whiskey. I'm not a whiskey expert by any stretch. I'm not going to propose to be one, but I know a good whiskey
I think
when I try it.
honey is very nuanced. And
Yeah,
the
good point.
flavor you get out of honey, depending on the type of honey, it can range. And it's a very, to me, it's always been a hard flavor to really describe.
This is a bit, so you guys help me out. Lemon drop hops, again, getting back to this. I've not had a lot of experience with that particular strain. So, I mean, you knew about this, Bill? I mean,
Yeah,
you knew
we've been using this for,
Okay.
I want to say 4 or 5 years.
Interesting, okay.
The hop.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We used it for our first Hefeweizen, which was, what was the name? It became Wallflower Wheat. And that was about 2014, 2013, where we released that. So we used it as a complement to Sriracha Ace. And then we just dropped Sriracha Ace and kept that in any wheat beer we did after. But we didn't honestly make a Hefeweizen for 2 years. Like, this is the first one in a little while. So
Would I be right in thinking that it's a hop that's getting a little more attention now? Because I'm trying to remember. I just saw a promotion for a beer release that I thought was local, although I'm looking it up and I can't find it, that's called like lemon drop or something. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No. But,
Yeah, me either.
but it's possible. It's a hop that just isn't, it's not a sexy hop. Lemon drop doesn't have that ring to it. It's, it's not Simcoe. It doesn't have the mosaic type ring to it. It sounds very much like it is. It's for once we name a hop what it is, which is
exactly. But it really is effective in this. And again, I'm taking 2 or 3 sips here, and I'm getting almost different sensations each time I try it.
Yeah, and part of that's the honey. The honey's
Okay.
going to provide that underlying warmth, and it's going to change that character as it changes.
Tell us about Round Guys, because it may not
Right.
be. It's a company that may not be familiar with everyone. Tara, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you and I did our internet show, which was called Still Crazy After All These Beers, years ago, but I believe we had Round Guys on, didn't we?
I think we
Way
just
back
got
in the
on.
early days.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was at an event. I remember that. We had them on.
Some festival.
It was
That
a
might have
festival.
even been way back when it was.
I probably
two-
wasn't born yet.
The two
Well, the
original
company's only,
partners?
Right.
the company's, 6, 7 years old? or what?
2012.
2012, right, exactly. So it wasn't, had to be right at the early stages of the
Yeah,
company's existence.
I do vaguely remember having Scott on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
Anyway,
exactly.
yes, I think.
All
you're
right, so we established that the company started existing in 2012. Tell us about locations.
So 2012 we started up, right? And that was Scott and Rich at the time. And Rich
Right.
departed within a year after that. However, we opened up the brew pub right at opening, and then that was pretty much a solo operation for a number of years until 2 years ago when we went in a partnership with Backyard Beans into a new facility right across the street, and it was shared production space with Backyard Beans Coffee, with their cafe upstairs and their roastery upstairs, and then downstairs we had our own venue space. And for those who aren't familiar with our brand, one of the things, the attractions to non-beer drinkers, to individuals who are just looking for a casual night out, is that we had started drag shows, and drag shows started coming in, and they became huge sales. We couldn't get the bar would be packed out, so we opened up the Underground as kind of a way to leverage out a different facility while being able to keep the bar open, so we can keep the pub, which we kind of rebranded as Lansdale Brew Pub, keep that going separate while the Underground can handle shows. So that's how we got to Bumblebee Wheat here, is that we have every kind of show you can imagine in there. Obviously, drag shows. We have a movie night with a drag queen that does MST3K style, like a taco package put in there. And
What?
Then,
What does that mean?
I knew what that meant. I am such a nerd.
You know
so
what? I don't know what it means. I'm shaking my head like I know.
MST3K, for those of you who aren't nerds, who didn't spend your life waking up watching really boring TV on Comedy Central, was Mystery Science Theater 3000.
I love that. I love that show. I
Yeah,
love
great
that.
show.
Where you
All
have
right.
the two robots and was it John, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sitting there and they're just making fun of bad movies. So we have a drag queen that comes in and does an MST3K commentary to bad movies, and
That's
it's in this venue.
That is cool.
In addition, we get everything rock, hip hop, jazz, you name it. We've had like hardcore. We get all kinds of music in there.
I love that, and it gives me a way to show off my chiffon outfit that I've been wearing.
Your daughter's not laughing.
No, she's not. Kristen's giving me
Ooh,
a
that
dirty
look.
look here. Right.
So that's the Underground, and that's located right across the street. Mm-hmm. And then we opened up this year in September. We opened up the Glenside Ale House.
Yeah.
Now, there's a unique
Been
point of
killing
view
it.
there in terms of the food. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we have Phil Deaver. He actually used to be a chef in Lansdale for us a
Okay.
couple years back. Then he went off on his own and was doing some work. And we contacted him to see if he wanted to be head chef and kind of come up with the creative idea of the food for the Glenside Ale House. We were looking for a way to open up a facility in Glenside, but we didn't. Me and Scott were like, we don't want any parts of dealing with the food. We just want to take care of the beer, let someone else deal with the food. So essentially what we found was that we got Phil in there, and Phil wanted to do Mexican type food. So we call it Mexicu, where he actually does like smoked meats and different kinds of type meats, and does really creative approach to Mexican. It's really a tasty approach to Mexican. Phil would actually have to be able to describe his approach on that a little better than I could. But the fact that we don't do typical bar food there. It's a lot of like Mexican egg rolls, and it's just I love it.
Tara would like to know. She's been dying to ask whether children are allowed to come in. Do they come in?
It sounds like a kid-friendly place.
Yes, is it kid-friendly?
All of our facilities are kid friendly.
Well, there you go.
Forget it. Get him off.
Every time I see somebody talk about kids and breweries, I just tag Tara to it.
Right.
Every time, just so she can say it.
That's going to be my enduring legacy in the world.
It might be. So, in other words, since kids, we can bring Adam in then, right? I'm sorry, Adam. Adam Clark is our beloved engineer, and I asked him to pull a microphone in front of him here because Adam's not 21 yet. So we have all these beverages that come in. Do you ever want to try one? I mean, I can't give you one. You realize that, but
Well, I mean, I've never had a drink before, so
you better not. Exactly.
So I mean, I'm not. It's
Can you open the windows up in here, Tab?
I know.
It's getting very
Getting
deep right now.
Yeah, I'm looking at I'm trying to read his face to see if he's kidding or not.
I know.
no,
He-
I'm not kidding.
You're
I
not
only-
kidding?
I only drink water and milk.
You know
and,
why?
the
Because
occasional herbal tea.
his mom listens to every broadcast. I want you to know that. And if he said that he indulged, he would be in deep
I'm
doo-doo
actually
when
drunk right now.
So it's not a matter of being underage. It doesn't sound like you're really going to be a drinker anyway.
Not really, no.
You're more into can we stop getting these healthy guys on? Like, the ones who go to the gym. Look at his arms, man.
My unhealthiness more than makes up for his healthiness at this point.
We get Tom and we get you.
Oh Lord, my goodness. All right, Bill. So you got a unique thing happening here. I mean, just the food over at Glenside is a whole different approach than what one might expect.
Yeah.
And how's that working out? I mean,
It's
I know you
working
just
out
opened
great.
up
Yeah,
a month or so ago.
It's been Glenside actually opened. They opened up to us before we opened up.
Okay.
So
okay, got you.
One of the unique stories was around the 4th of July, the week before. They were really excited to have us in town, and we would constantly get bugged. Well, not really bugged, but it was a lot of people kept contacting us. When are you opening up? When are you opening up? When are you opening up? And you have inspections and you have fixes you have to make, and the date kept getting pushed back because we had different things we had to do with, for health codes and whatnot. We had to just get things squared up. And it was the week before the 4th of July, I get a phone call from a guy, Jamie, over in Glenside, and he's like, hey, would you guys want to hand out anything at the 4th of July parade? I'm like, yeah, sure. I have no idea yet what that is, but yeah, why not? He's like, calls me back within 2 minutes, like, hey, would you guys want to be in the 4th of July parade? Like, well, yeah, sure, let's do it. No idea what we're doing yet. We pulled it together. It was all hands on deck trying to pull together some marketing materials and trying to find people we can get to run around and give out stuff. And they put us between a church and it was like a church giving out popsicles to little kids and some other kind of
Laura Merlin.
equally non-satanic car. So it was a great time. But Glenside itself, we really feel at home in Glenside, and Glenside's been great so far. So
Good.
Yeah, it's a good fix. It's not your typical burger and fries place. We have fries and we have burgers, but really it's a Mexican that drives it.
Okay.
So.
All right. Curious about that.
So it sounds like so much of a destination. I mean, you can spend like all afternoon and night, between your places, going to a show.
We call it the ecosystem.
The ecosystem. So are all your places pretty close together? I don't necessarily know the landscape there. And then are there places to stay over? Because I would want to go and make a night of it.
Oh, we'll get that built soon. Don't worry. But there are. I mean, you have hotels and everything out that way.
Okay. I guess.
In Lansdale, it actually does work much more like you can stay in the environment a lot better in Lansdale, mainly because our underground is directly across the street from our original brew pub, the actual brewery location. And then on top of that street in the middle, Wood Street, often we use that for block parties, or the town uses it for block parties. So it's always something going on right there. You can go have dinner in Lansdale and then walk across the street and catch a music show or catch a drag show or catch whatever you want to. Like when we have board game night, go play some board games and whatnot. So full bar in Lansdale, in all three places, but the underground specifically, we have everything in there, including sodas for anyone who's underage and whatnot. So
I do want to mention also the website is roundguysbrewery.com. whatsontap.com, correct?
Yes.
So you can get all the information about both locations. I think you also have your menus up there, food menus.
We have food menus for both facilities, and we also have the beer. Most of our beers up there, most of the beers that have labels. We do a lot. So, and I'm sure, and I know a lot of other breweries do this. One of the great things about having a pub facility is the fact that you can do mug clubs. And mug clubs allow you to experiment, and they allow you to perfect and round out a beer. Oftentimes, we come up with an idea, and it'll be a little rough. The first beer that comes through, it's not going to be bad. You just know when you're in this industry, you realize that the beers, it's kind of like crafting a song, right? The first draft of a song, it's not that great. It's good. Your friends will like it, but the mass audience is probably not going to buy into it. It doesn't have those catches yet. But as you round out the beer over the course of a year, that's when we start bringing it up and becomes a primetime beer for us. So the Mug Club's been a huge benefit in that regard. And those beers aren't listed on the website, but we do have the beer menus up for each facility.
That's great.
On the website.
Now, we're pouring a second beer right here. And we also want to get into, we want to talk a little bit about this distribution, where we can find the beers outside the local area. But this next one is your Saison, correct, Bill?
Correct.
Okay,
yes.
and this is called Loving the Alien.
Loving the Alien, yes.
All right, give us a little information about that.
For those of you who are familiar with Philadelphia beer scene, which I assume is many people listening, there's a beer at a bar, Doobie's Bar, out by Graduate Hospital area. And Patty Brett, she's been there for quite a while, and I'm sure everyone here is probably familiar with Patty. She is a huge, huge Bowie fan. And the first time this came up was 2 years ago. We had, she came to us and asked us about doing a beer for Bowie Week, which is the first week of January. And
As in David Bowie, right?
Correct. World Cafe will be, they have an event, there's a lot of different events around town. It's kind of like Beer Week, but just 5 places.
There you go.
And we said, yeah, we've always had a tight relationship with Patty. So we decided to make a Saison, and Loving the Alien became it. We actually had another version of this that was more hoppy that will be taking the reins of Loving the Alien, but that was Sigma Kids. And so we had 2 versions of Loving the Alien, and they ran concurrently for most of this year. But essentially, this beer is it's about 50% wheat and rye, and then you have your Pils malt, and it's just a really flavorful, a little hoppier Saison. I think the hops aren't overwhelming. I think they just add a nice character.
Correct.
To it.
Yeah. You're right. And you're right. With the Saison, you have a mindset. I know you guys do, but when I see a style of beer listed, I have a mindset of what I would expect to try. And my first sip, I'm getting hops, which I didn't necessarily expect, but are not offensive by any stretch.
Right.
26 IBUs, you said, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So there you go, right there. And I see also in the specs 5% brown sugar.
Yes.
So why is it David Bowie Week and not Rolling Stones? I mean, I don't
Hey, we didn't come up with a week.
right. Okay.
Because then Lagunitas might sue them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, good point. Yeah, this is a society in which
Very litigious.
very litigious. Absolutely.
Got that Heineken money behind them.
You're
And
right.
comes in a little over 6.5%?
About that, yeah, 6.5.
6.5%. Very, very good beer. Excellent beer. Launched where it was and still is the official beer of David Bowie Week. See, a lot of cool things coming down. I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
How many beers of all could we expect to try? Let's say I go to the brew pub in Lansdale.
So
What
Brew
would I
Pub
be able to
Lansdale
find?
has twice as many as all of our other locations. So you can get up to about 20 beers, depending what's running, what's on draft, if we have crowlers out there. So you can get up to 20 available in a glass. Usually around 18 to 16 are on. And we have takeout, of course. We go to Glenside. We have 10 taps. So not as many, but still it's a good variety. Glenside does have the distinction of having a Glenside Pale Ale, which we don't have up in Lansdale, and that's the next beer we'll have. But that's Glenside specific. And then you go to the underground, and we have about, I want to say, 8 beers on draft, and then we have the difference in cans, so you can buy both on site.
Okay.
Hey, one of the things that I see in there that's very unique is your can art. Our friend Richard, the Rastafarian, mentioned on my podcast last week that it's the new album art. It's like the new thing when you're in the liquor store. You're like looking at the cans, and he makes a decision on what beer to buy. He makes many decisions, probably by reading beer cans, but in this case,
And they don't always relate to beer either.
but
Why
you're.
isn't he? Sorry, go ahead.
I love that guy.
He should be our fourth or third or whatever.
he's the
co-host.
best.
Do you think he would come on the show at some point?
Absolutely.
I'd love
Get
to
him
get him
on.
on the show.
Yeah, he's
Anyway,
my
I'm
hetero
sorry to
life mate.
take away from
Your can art is really, really unique. And tell me a little bit about the process. I mean, I was looking at the labels last night. They're all very unique. Some of them look like my child drew them. But, I mean, I know that there's probably some thinking behind all this.
So the ones that probably look like your child drew them, and I'm going to guess, have this style, right? Have
Right.
Love and the Alien style.
Yeah.
So I use 3 artists for the branding. And one of the reasons for that is because we had a rebranding. Our original artwork was done by Joe over at Current. So he was our first graphic designer before he opened up Current Cider, Joe Getz. And we decided to do a full rebranding over the course of, I guess, a year. And started changing all of our core beers out and then starting with our specialty beers. We use 3 different artists. The main one that I use for core beers and for the ones you're looking at right now on the website, that's Keith Greenman. And Keith Greenman is known for doing Highway Manor, Trust the Process over at Evil Genius. So,
Okay. I see that.
Yep.
Correlation.
so we were, I believe, Keith's second big account before he got to Evil Genius and all those guys. Highway Manor, I think, was his first. And Keith just has a unique. He builds. They all have their different strengths. Keith builds an environment, and it's when you look at it, it looks like a place, right? It looks like a place you want to kind of like a different world you're going to. Yeah. So you see Rye Eagles Rye, and you see Love and the Alien here, and they definitely feel like there's an environment. His main characters can't survive without that environment. Then we use another person who's a that's Keith right there for Lancel Lager.
Yeah, that is so cool.
It's really cute. If you're listening right now, where are these on your website?
It's on roundguysbrewery.com.
These labels, they're all, the ones that John's showing me are all very colorful illustrations, and they're really fun. So if you're listening, go look at them right now. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, part of that you were mentioning before about the art. To me, art, I always like art. I think art's great. I have no ability at it, but I admire it. And I always want to see us. I don't want us to be a business per se. Me and Scott talked about this. Like, if we can have a community and have really, my goal is to build a community with everyone we interact with. And that involves our artists. So we have 2 other artists, and you'll see on there, I don't know if it's up on the website, but there's a beer called, why am I blanking on this beer? There's a watermelon ale that's Secret Garden, and I don't know if that's up there.
Not from what I saw.
Yeah,
but I mean,
and then we also have Rebirth of the Cool. Those 2 are done by our main graphic designer, which we do for in-house stuff like menus, Karen Katz, and she does really good font work. Like, her font work is phenomenal. Her designs are really good, but her font work is great, and that's why I like using her for a lot of in-house stuff. That's actually, the Chronomancer one is actually a legacy from Joe Getz. Okay. So that's one I think we'll stick with until we come up with a better idea on that.
I think to distinguish yourself in the marketplace with the amount of shelf space that you're getting these days, you have to embrace labels. You have to do something different because people will walk by your beer if it doesn't catch your eye. And I think that what you've done here, and I know you want to, with the art, I mean, it's really sets you uniquely different than a lot of people that want to carry the same branding from can to can to can to can.
John, is that
really cool.
especially if you're maybe not real familiar with a brewery?
I think so. I think, one of the things that we talk about is, millennials and younger people are really, driving this market. If it doesn't look like a beer their dad would drink, I don't think they're going to pick it up. I think it makes a real big difference. But these are very eclectic and they're very unique. And I would walk by and say, hey, you know what? I want to try that. That looks like something that is hip, something that is cool. And to stand out, you really have to do this. I mean, you can't skimp on any part of the process.
And I so subscribe. We've said this before, and you reiterated on this point again, that because of cans, the amount of information that can be passed on to the potential consumer is so much better than just bottles.
And there's no wasted
you guys
space.
Have found that out. Right, exactly.
No wasted space. I mean,
wasted space.
Yeah, one of the things you're talking about, the different consumer, you don't want to, if you have a 25 to 38, 39-year-old, you don't want that person out. That person's not looking for a Miller Lite can per se, right?
Right.
They're a craft beer drinker. They want to see something that's unique, that's cool, that maybe they can show off to their friends, put on Instagram. One of the things that we do with the different artists, and the last one I didn't mention was John Comerford, who has the character art. So if you see Russian Messenger, when we redid that beer, which came about before Trump was elected, has nothing to do with an election, but that, yeah, he does character art, and his character art is what I use to target more of the high-end craft beer drinker, and by that I mean like your elitists, your 10%, your beer nerds. I'd use Karen to do more of the general beer drinker, which includes, I would say, more of a, if you have a female drinker out there, I think she's much more in tune with that kind of a drinker. And then I use Keith out there to do more of our 80% or most of our core beers, because they're going to hit the 80% market. So you look at it from a strategic point equally as well as the art.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh, no, go
No,
ahead.
finish your point. Good.
So this is so interesting, and I guess I've thought about it maybe with wine, but not beer necessarily. What I understand you saying is you've got these 3 different graphic artists who you assign different beers depending on like what type of beer it is, who your audience is. I don't hear that ever in beer. This might be the first time. And as John was showing me, who's the artist?
This is Keith Grieman for
Okay.
Loving the Alien. Yes.
So that's a really consistent look. Like you can go to a liquor store and see any one of these beers and figure that maybe they are round guys. And I would think that would be increasingly important for, brand recognition in this whole, I steal Jeff Linkas's term, the 10,000 beer stare. And you're a marketing guy, a branding guy. Like how do you think that's going to be something more breweries should and are going to embrace?
I think we have a unique position, unlike probably some other breweries out there, in that when we dropped our distribution, when we dropped our wholesaler in 2016, I want to say, late 2015, we didn't really know who our target audience was going to be. So when we went out there for a market, most of it is in-house. But then we started picking up the Wegmans and the Whole Foods and your bottle shops again. And we're trying to do, I think in general, beer drinkers nowadays have so many choices. Brand loyalty is just not a thing for most of them. And like you mentioned, the art does play a big factor in it. So if the art's playing a big factor in it, then let's target the art that they're going to be looking at. And, as someone who's a beer geek myself, I would assume, and this is me making a generalization, but I don't think it's too far off, is that most beer geeks are going to be guys my age. So they're going to be looking for something that they can share with their buddies. And then when it comes to something that my dad's looking to drink, he's going to be fine with anything, but his tastes are probably going to be closer to someone who's, he's a craft beer drinker. I converted him years ago.
Okay, good. Congratulations.
But his tastes are going to be more comparable to a general first-time, person. And something that maybe Karen makes will be a little more, when he sees it, it won't be as intimidating as, say, when you look at Love and the Alien.
A little more mainstream.
Yeah, this looks like craft to me.
Yes.
This looks like craft.
Oh, I agree.
And if you see Secret Garden, it will look more like, I won't say mainstream, but it will look less craft.
Okay.
And then, yeah.
Well, I was also interested to see on your Bumblebee Wii, the one that you did in partnership with this band Stereo Titans, you've got one of these QR codes on it too.
That
and you
is, yeah, so the band actually made the art and the label for that one. So we went in partnership with them, and they're like, yo, we really want to make the label. We're so excited about having a beer. I was like, all right, sure, let's go with it. This is a beer that we usually don't sell out in retail that much, although it does get to retail. But it usually gets to retail based on where the band's driving it.
Well, I would think that's so super synergistic. I mean, they're buying this beer. Like, say I buy this beer, I don't know the
Stereo Titans.
I don't know
Yes.
that band. Sorry. But, with one scan, I can listen to some of their music, download some stuff. I mean, that's really good cross promotion there.
Yeah.
Is that going to be something you think will be on more beer cans consistently?
I don't know, but I know I've been looking at it. So.
Yeah. Is it expensive to do that? Is
No.
there a cost to it? No. Okay.
The QR code just
win-win.
hasn't taken a hold in the United States like
Boy,
it
you're
has
right.
in Asia. And I had some guys from New Zealand in my office show me some prototype products, and they're like, "Do you think people will use this?" I'm like, "Absolutely not." Like
Tara,
people don't use it. But
That's the downside. I mean, for coasters, we had the QR code on the back of coasters for a long time.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And
No.
it just hasn't been marketed right here. Like when you're in Asia, I'm sure, I don't know if you saw this, but I hear everybody, there's a QR code and anything. Tara's showing me about it right now.
Yeah, so this bottle that we're about to open of scotch that I was talking about at the top of the show that they released internationally in China, it's got this QR code on it with Chinese writing.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
Well, that bottle's been. Now you opened that bottle like 5 minutes ago.
know, I'm sorry.
Let it breathe.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's got to breathe. Whereas I'm hyperventilating over here.
I'm still on coffee. Like, I'm not even really ready for beer and to open whiskey right now.
Well,
I'm procrastinating, to be honest with you. But
Bill,
it's really
as
good.
we try this, and I'm so looking forward to it. So I asked a little bit earlier, where can we find people are looking for Round Guys beer? Where can they find it in terms of retail markets?
So for the most part, we don't have any. I know for a fact we don't have any Jersey markets at the moment.
Right.
However, Montgomery County and Bucks County, Pennsylvania, we are in Doylestown and anywhere in Montgomery County, pretty much we're there. In Philadelphia, the hot spots we usually hit are anywhere in Fishtown, Port Richmond, and South Philly. Those are the spots you can find at bottle shops and at different bars down there.
All right, very, very good. Where does the name? I got to ask you, where does the name Round Guys come from?
So, have you ever met Scott?
Yes, I have, but our audience may not have. So.
Tara, you met Scott and Rich, and they were both round. So we cut one of them off, and now we just have one round guy.
Round guy.
But it's funny
Round
because
guy, right.
so yeah, you look at the ownership side, and it's me, Brian, and Scott. And I don't think me and Brian together equal Scott.
But the beers are pretty darn good. What we've had here today, actually over the last couple of weeks, because you were here with us last week. Didn't have that much time to really chat with you, but really, really good beer. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Please look for them and check them out. Round Guys Brewery, and go to roundguysbrewery.com. Tara, I am loving the scotch.
Yeah, you tasted it?
I most certainly did.
It's really good, right?
It is really good.
Yeah, so I will introduce it.
Hello, Bob.
I'm laughing. I have no idea what that
No,
meant.
you have no idea.
You got the ball.
You got to be right. You got to be old like me to appreciate it.
Oh, we have two. We're getting a 2-minute signal.
2-minute warning.
2 minutes. Let's go. All right. So this is, and if you're listening, follow along at home. Look it up. It's Royal Salute blended Scotch. This is what we're drinking now. The second release in the beach. Well, it's the first beach polo edition, and what this Scotch is, it's been around since the 1950s. Every year they release something. And it's made for the British royal family. So this is a very like ultra premium, aristocratic British thing.
Maybe I should bow before taking a sip of this.
Well, some of you guys might have heard that after this trip, I am now friends with a duke. And I am friends with an international polo star. So hot. Sorry.
Pardon me.
And it's because of this brand. So these guys are close friends with Prince Harry and Meg's. Because Prince Harry is a big polo player. And so they've brought polo into their branding. And the past 2, I believe, releases that they've done of this Royal Salute have been related to the sport of polo. And interesting tidbit, you think of polo as being all these, like, rich people, and it is.
Yeah, it is, right, exactly. Yeah.
But the sport of beach polo is growing, and the people behind traditional polo are trying to grow it because, as society gets so much, more youth-focused and casual, beach polo you can kind of bring anywhere. So they're bringing beach polo to the masses, and I realize now I'm not even talking about the liquid anymore, and I'm getting the wrap-up signal, but this is a blend of a lot of different 21-year aged scotches, and it's high-end. I think
It
I
is
remember
remarkable.
it's like $250. It's a kind of limited release, but if you're into scotch, you definitely want it. I think it's magnificent. What do
most
you guys
certainly
think?
is.
It is so good.
Got to
It is
thank Bill
so
McGeeney
smooth.
for being here for 2 straight weeks from Round Guys Brewery. Thanks for making the trip in. Really appreciate that.
Thank you,
And
Gary
The beers
and
are
crew.
great. You gave us a great explanation of what's coming down with the company. Okay, very, very good. John and Tara, thank you so much. Tropicana, thanks for sponsoring us. We will see you next week on What's on Tap.